Welcome to Chica sa Casa. This is Chica sa Casa, the place where stories come to life and conversations take us on inspiring journeys. I'm your host, Argentina Beltran, and today's episode dives deep into a topic that touches the hearts of many. In a world that celebrates the joy of motherhood, there's a shadow that often goes unnoticed, an insidious issue that leaves scars that are often invisible, yet profound. Mom shaming. It's a phrase that carries the weight of judgment, unrealistic expectations, and societal pressures. It's about those moments when a mother's choices, decisions, and even appearances are dissected, critiqued, and deemed wrong by a world that should be understanding. But today, we're shining a light on this issue, breaking the silence that surrounds it, and exploring the strength, resilience, and beautiful spirit that can emerge from within. I'm joined by an extraordinary guest, Mariel, a seasoned broadcast media professional whose journey has taken her from documentary writing to hosting her own empowering podcast, the Tired Moms Podcast. Through candid conversations and heartfelt storytelling, Mariel opens up about her experiences from her days in broadcast media to her mission of supporting mothers. She brings to life the impact of mom shaming, those invisible scars it leaves behind, while inspiring us with her commitment to uplifting the Filipino community through projects like The Jungle, an American Anthology, and Finding Manilatown. So if you've ever felt the weight of judgment as a mother, if you've questioned your choices in the face of societal pressures, or if you believe in the power of storytelling to heal and empower, then you're in the right place. Get ready for an honest and enlightening conversation that uncovers the truth behind mom shaming, celebrates the strength of mothers, and encourages all to embrace our journey fearlessly. Stay tuned as we journey through the highs and lows, the challenges and triumphs, and the beauty that lies within every mother's story. This is Chica sa Casa, and this is Breaking the Silence, Overcoming Mom Shaming. Let's dive in. My kumare, Mariel, welcome to the show.
So much. What an intro. I was like, is that me?
It's you. Who else could it be? I'm like,
thank you.
Wow, you've done so many amazing things. Like,
oh, that's so kind. Thank you.
Well, welcome. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me, and of course, congratulations on your podcast. This is so exciting. The whole community, of course, we're very excited for you. We've always said if anyone deserves their own show, it's Argentina. You are our community, though, Fred. We're always rooting for you. So I'm so honored. I'm so honored.
The community
to be here.
Oprah or community okra? Which one is it?
Maybe both. I love okra. Sinigang, let's get it.
All right, Mariel, let's get into it. Our topic for tonight is breaking the silence, overcoming mom shaming. Define mom shaming.
Mom shaming. I think in its simplest form, honestly, it's just adult bullying. You know, right? It's adult bullying. If another person or parent sees you doing something the way that they wouldn't do it, or they disagree like completely, or they're offended maybe by your child, and they'll impose what they think should be done, right? And by that they'll say essentially that your process is not right, that and it's just the audacity sometimes about like mom shaming or even parent shaming, right? Because not just me, sometimes my husband will get it too. I feel like people feel that it's their job to rectify you, or that it's their job to, that the situation is out of hand and it's their call they make that call. Like, who are you? What is this audacity? There's just this air of audacity that they know and that you should follow suit. So that's how I would define it. It's really adult bullying,
I want to understand in terms of your personal experience when it comes to mom shaming, because at 22, not only are you, in terms of, you still have a lot of insecurities as a person. Like, I'm trying to imagine myself when I was 22. I had my kids when I was 30. And even then I still had a lot of insecurities myself in terms of who I am. So how was that? Like, what's your personal experience being a young mom and the experiences you mentioned in school and in other circumstances as well, where you felt like there was the shame attached to the interaction?
Yes, there's so many stories. I mean, again, being 22, and again, in any circle I walk into, being the youngest, and thing is about us, we all look young. So if I'm almost 40 now, and people still think I'm sisters with my daughter. Either they're being really nice or it's true. I look young,
You
But
do look
at
young,
20,
though. They still get ID'd.
sometimes I do,
I
I'm
get
gonna ride
offended
that
when I
wave.
don't, when I go buy alcohol and somebody doesn't ask for my ID. And then when they
How
do
dare
ask for
you?
my ID, I'm like, thank you.
Please, you just please ask me for my ID. Yeah, so
Yeah, so yeah,
can you
sorry.
imagine, right?
Yeah.
No, of course. What can you imagine at 22? Then we look like babies, and that's how I was. I looked like a baby, and honestly, I was a baby. Like 22 is really young. So any space I walked into, there was almost like this air of like we have to help her or we have to tell her this is how it is. And so sometimes you'd be in a room full of like, I know culturally the Filipinos, if you're in a room full of aunties and lolos and lolas, grandparents and aunts and uncles, right? They just have a tendency to kind of overbear and say, oh, your baby's crying because of this, give it to me, I'll fix it. Hold on, Or I know there was this one time, this one older like Lola type, right? She my baby was crying. My baby is a colicky baby. That's the thing. So she had gas problems, Matilda, with her stomach. So she naturally would be uncomfortable and cry, right? And there was this one time an older Filipina grandma type. My baby was crying. She was getting very frustrated. She was like, "Why aren't you feeding her?" And I was like, "I just fed her." She's just gassy. And I tried to explain it respectfully. And what she did was she ripped out a piece of thread from her dress. She licked it. She like put it in her mouth and soaked it with her saliva and put it on. And she put it on my baby's head. And you have to understand, like this was kind of the time of SARS too. And I was like, what? No, I was so upset. I was so upset. But that's the thing, though. It's just every single room I went to, everyone just kind of assumed she doesn't know what she's doing. You have to fix it for her, or give the baby to me. Like I'll do this, or why didn't you bring this? You should have brought her more milk. You should have done this. So there were just a lot of assumptions that I didn't know what I was doing, and a lot of unsolicited advice, of course. But that might not be exclusive to our culture. I wouldn't know. I'm only Filipino, who knows? But so that's kind of what it was like culturally. Now in the outside world, beyond like, my circle of like Filipino family or friends, right? There was still definite judgment. Again, I looked very young with a baby. And there were instances where the assumption remains the same, where it's like they assume I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing, or that I'm already doing it wrong. There was a time when a nurse, like my kid was getting her scheduled shots, babies get shots, right? And so she was getting her shots. Her instinct, of course, as a baby was to flinch and flail, when she's hurt, as she was. And I feel like that's a good instinct. But the nurse got very stern with her and kind of like held her down and then yelled at her and then yelled at me, and being so young, I didn't know how to react. And I remember maybe I even said like sorry. Maybe I said sorry. I had nothing to be sorry about. I realize that now. But that was my instinct. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, why'd she hit you? But a baby doesn't have intent like that, It really doesn't. And so she kind of ran us out saying like, teach your child not to hit kind of thing. And I'm like, literally 7 months, this baby, like no malicious intent there. So
or maybe your baby just had a strong sense that she was evil.
That could be it too. Her spidey senses were tingling and was like, okay. Yeah, exactly. Can you imagine stranger danger? Plus, like you're getting poked. So naturally you'd be like, oh my gosh, no. I felt like it was good instinct for her to be like, it hurts, don't hurt me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's one that stuck with me for a very long time, that instance. Because I was like, well, if this person in the medical community is saying that I'm doing a bad job at this juncture of my child's life, and I didn't even anticipate that she should already know not to hit.
Right.
She should have for some months. Yeah. Then I had judged myself maybe more than the nurse did. So that was really tough for me, and beyond that, there have been a lot of instances in the playgrounds or at schools, like either dropping Matea off or picking her up, and parents like again they see me, and now they'll see me with like my other baby, and of course I'm a hot mess, I'm just like, they think I'm a teenager and I'm a hot mess. And one of them even had said like some offhand comment about she said it in Tagalog. She said, ang aga-aga mo kasing naglandi, or something like that. Ang aga-aga mo kasing naglandi. How do you even translate that in English? But it was something like, it's because you were a woman of ill repute.
You
You're
were
like, yeah,
hoeing early. That's the
for
literal translation.
yes, for a lack of better words, that was that. And there were so many assumptions attached to that, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
either these babies were not wanted or planned, which they were, you know, like well within marriage, granted
But
they're
the
married.
audacity to actually just like blurt that out. Like,
Right. I don't know. I don't know why it was so comfortable for them to
did you
do
feel
that.
like when you were pregnant and when you became a mom, you
Yeah.
all of a sudden became like public property
Oh
that
yeah.
people can just say whatever they want to say to you and you're just supposed to take it?
Oh, 100%. I was
Right?
just like this little accessory even, that like, oh, how cute. And let's touch it. Let's rub its belly. Let's pick at it. Let's like dress it up. It was
Mm-hmm.
almost like a dehumanizing experience.
Very, very
Yeah.
much.
And sometimes that's why pregnancy is a lonely experience.
It is.
Because, like if you're not surrounded by, people that are pregnant at the same time as you can't be like, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, and if you're alone and maybe people closest to you are even doing that, right?
Yeah.
Where it's tough.
Yeah. No, for sure. Because, like, for example, when I was pregnant with twins, right?
Yeah,
And I was over 200 pounds at that time. And it was like this giant belly. And I would
naturally.
go
Yeah.
grocery shopping, and people would just like come towards me and start rubbing my belly or would say things like, it's got to be twins, right? If it's not twins, then I don't know what you did with yourself. Like, what?
The audacity, seriously.
And then, like, relatives like Tita would comment. I had one Tita that made a comment about, you know, because I said that it's so hard to find maternity clothes that look like potato sack. Back
Yeah,
then, there weren't a lot of options when I was pregnant with my
same.
kids that are like,
Mhm.
now I see a lot of like amazing styles and
Yeah,
like it seems like a lot more options. But back then, it was like, you're gonna look like a potato sack. So what I
pretty much.
did was I started buying regular clothes in extra large,
Yeah.
right? And I would say that like we were having a conversation, and one of the titas said that, well, get used to it because that's gonna be your size from now on, right? And then they think it's like these comments are like harmless and
That's the thing. And they
innocent.
think it's funny and they get mad when you get mad.
Yeah.
They get
And one
mad
of
when you have
my
feelings.
exactly. And it's like one of my biggest pet peeve as well as a Filipino mom is the constant shaming, especially when my kids were younger, about my decision, like our decision to not
Oh, yeah.
um, spank our kids. Like
Oh,
physical
hmm
punishment is not a
hmm
thing. And their constant thing is like they're going to be spoiled if they weren't spanked or if you don't enforce physical punishment. Did you have
right.
that as well?
You know what? It's interesting because so my parents live in Canada
Mm,
and my in-laws are nearby. They generally like respect the way that we raise the kids,
mm-hmm,
If anything, they'll offer their comments, but they're pretty hands off. And we like you, we don't hit,
mm-hmm,
instead we talk through it, which may be worse. Like my daughter sometimes just spank me and get it over with because like sometimes when we talk it's in depth. I
mm-hmm.
want you to understand why we're having this talk, what happened, and
Mm,
how can we fix this. And sometimes it'll be an hour long, two
mm-hmm.
hours, and that's the way it is.
Talk about mom shaming and its effects in terms of mental health, someone's self-esteem, right? You
Mm-hmm.
mentioned that you have had experience of mom shaming. I want to hear
Mm-hmm.
in terms of how did that impact you? How did that impact your mental health? And did it also, was your self-esteem impacted as well?
Girl, I might cry, and I feel like this isn't a place to.
Mm,
But it's very hard. I don't know if anyone realizes this because sometimes people think they're just making comments.
mm,
Sometimes, right? Like, and sometimes in our culture, Filipinos just like to talk to talk. They just want to say something, and they don't
mm.
necessarily want the ramifications of what they're saying. They don't care about how you feel. You know what I mean? They're offended
Yeah,
by
and
how
then
you feel.
even if you call them out, they'll say, "Joke, joke lang. You're too sensitive."
Exactly. Ikaw pang mali. You're still the person in the wrong
Oh,
now,
they will
right?
flip the tables on you like that.
Exactly. How dare you, right?
Hmm.
But the truth is, because you're surrounded by that and you're not able to express, as I feel I wasn't.
Hmm.
Again, I was really young,
Hmm.
and culturally, you're not told to talk back. And see, that's like another thing. You're told not to talk back and speak up for yourself. So I didn't. And the ramifications, honestly, it was almost this domino effect. First, you have me. Of course, my confidence as a mom was like just down. I was like, I'm a horrible mother,
Mm,
and it made me very sad that I was like, no matter what I'm going to do, I'm always going to step into a room where someone is going to know more than me about my child or know better than me.
mm,
So it was, it was hard because not only was I a young mom that had to grow up just as a person, but
mm,
now I also had to fight against that bad self-talk that I had
mm,
learned and picked up from these people that were telling me that I wasn't good enough
mhm,
or that are telling me I was wrong when really I wasn't hurting anyone. I wasn't hurting
mm,
my children. I wanted them to be children for as long as they could, and yeah. But it's yeah, like it honestly made I was never an introvert. I became one. I was like, you know what? Not going to talk to anyone. It's just
mm,
going to be the four of us. That's what we're going to do. And that really what happened. I was like, I'm not, I was so afraid to make friends.
mm,
That's why I was telling you, like, even before the podcast came along, I had no one because I didn't have anyone.
mm,
And so that podcast literally like saved me because it became my village. They became my real sisters. But beyond that, after recording, I was alone a lot.
mm,
And I was like, no, I'm just not going to engage because it was too hurtful.
mhm,
Um, and sadly, because I was like that, the thing that you have to realize is your kids pay attention.
mhm,
And my daughter pays such close attention to me, down to like the detail of me, how many times I look in the mirror, scrutinizing myself. She'll do the same thing,
mm,
you know? And
mm,
you think, oh no, I'm not hurting anyone. I'm just talking to myself. No, no, no. She's listening.
mhm,
And so because I was recluse socially, she had become recluse socially.
mhm,
And so I felt like we both had missed out on a lot of things because we were trying, well, I was trying to protect myself. And she in turn had picked up that maybe it's fine that it's just us.
mhm,
And it's sad to think about. I look back at that and now of course it's like a decade later or so, and I've grown a lot, like both as just a mom and a human being, right?
mm,
Where I'll still replay it. I'm like, I should have said this. I should have
mm,
like spoke up for myself. I should have spoke up for my kid. I should have done this and that.
mhm,
But at least there's that you've learned and grown, right?
mhm,
And but you can't take back those years. And even Matea, like I feel so bad. Like she used to be so outgoing and she had missed out on so much because she thought that, oh no, we're just gonna be just us, you
mhm,
know?
mhm,
So it's really tough. And like I swear, like it's so true because I really only started to open myself up again recently. Like literally
mm,
last year, I made a friend, and and my daughter was so proud of me. She
mm,
was just like, "Oh my gosh, you have a friend?" And like this is someone that I'll go have coffee with that's independent of her. It's not
mm,
because she's friend with their kid or anything like that. It's just someone that's genuinely my friend. But that is kind of the ramifications of it, like socially and mentally
mm,
on me. You know that it was it made me really depressed, made me really sad.
mm.
And yeah, I felt like it was again lonely, and I just didn't trust anyone with me or with like me as a mom. Yeah,
Mm. See,
yeah.
I'm listening to you because I've met you
Hmm.
just recently, just last year, when you're already outgoing, outspoken, you seem
Yeah.
very confident and really comfortable in your own skin. So
Hmm.
listening to you um, telling me that story, I can't make the connection because like
Yeah.
I've always known you as, you're so
Yeah.
happy, outspoken, like what I said. Um,
Yeah.
so, understanding that, right? And looking back, what would you say to that version of you now that you're
Oh
in this
no,
spot?
never tolerate it. You know, whatever you wanted to say, don't even worry about how they're going to take. Just say it. You
Mm,
know, if you believe that it was to defend yourself, speak up for yourself first of all. Speak up for your child most of all. That because that's something that I regret when they judge and I'm the one apologizing. Are you kidding me? I
mm,
did nothing. Yeah, no way. And there were times again where I'll apologize on behalf of my dad. Oh, I'm so sorry. No,
mm,
never.
mhm,
And again, that's a tough lesson to learn because you can't take back those moments.
mhm,
But no, never tolerate it. You know what I mean?
mhm.
And again, like always your kid first, essentially.
Do
You
you ever
know?
have the conversation with your kids now that they're grown about those times, about those insecurities that you had as a young mom, how lonely you felt? Because that's the other thing too. Being a mom, people
Yeah.
don't understand that it can be lonely. It is
Yeah.
lonely, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because especially the older generation, they have this idea that you can't possibly be lonely. You have a child. This should be the happiest moment
That's
of
your
your
purpose.
life.
That's who
Like
you
it,
are. Yeah,
you know
exactly.
what I mean? Like so,
Hmm.
like how do you make that connection?
Definitely. First, like I talk to at least whatever is age appropriate. You know what I mean? I'll start talking to them. Like Massimo's still 13. He's not quite there, like in terms of like these types of discussions, But my daughter definitely, again, because I feel like she had carried some of that with her. And so a few years back, I had noticed it. And that's when we started talking about it. That's when her and I started healing from this together, actually, you know and she was afraid to make social connections. And then I realized, I'm like, ooh, that's because I'm afraid to make so. And so there was a lot to dissect. There was a lot on my part to apologize for. Yeah, her and I ended up doing like a podcast episode on faith and family, or like tired moms, right? And it was just her and I. And it was just her experiences about me as a parent and her now as a teen, and the times that I've apologized to her and for what. So I'm very open to talking to my children about that, about my experience, about the times I was blue, the baby blues came. Like that's another topic, that I'm very open to talking to them about. The times where I felt like alone in the community, or like alone as a mom, or the times that I made mistakes like on them, that sometimes I'm like, ooh, that was my bad. I'm so sorry. It shouldn't have been that way. This is what I should have done.
I'm just grateful that I was introduced to a lot of people, especially in our community, that are doing the healing work.
Yes.
As well, because it's so inspiring when you see other people in the community that are doing things differently, and you never knew, and you never really understood it before, that's a lot of the things that were normalized in our community were not, right? Not until you hear it from other people and they share their experience. I'm like, oh, we can do that. We can say no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Like, because we're scared, we're scared to rock the boat, offend anybody. And you mentioned something earlier as well about, your husband showing affection, the gentleness to your kids, and the constant feedback, like, oh, you're teaching them to be soft. And that really like hit me, because growing up, our upbringing is always like, be tough, be tough. You're Filipino,
don't cry,
resilient, don't cry. Like that kind of stuff, right? Like if we would go to my dad, we got bullied, and we go and say, hey, somebody bullied us, we're gonna get in trouble, because what did you do? Why didn't you fight back? Why are you the one? They should be the one. Like, you know what I mean? So that's like the mentality. So as a mom, and when you're struggling, when you're feeling lonely, when you don't know what to do and you need help, it's really hard to reach out and say, I need help, because then you're weak. Like, how are you even
Right, exactly. And it's almost like you perpetuate this cycle in your head, right? It's really in your head, because you believe that you're believing the narrative that they're telling you you're wrong and you're weak, right? And if you say it, then it's true. Because if you say it to that same community, then they'll be like, see, you're weak, right? You should have done what we said. You should have followed those kids. You should have whatever. But in reality, it's like, well, we're people too, like I can't do this by myself. And I'm like really lucky. I've like mentioned to you all these ways that I've been really lucky, I'm really fortunate, really blessed. Like, but I can never, like, without all of that, like support or community or like love, never get through it. But again, even with that said, when you're being bullied by a community and they're just like, you're not gonna say anything. It's like, oh, maybe they're right. And you don't say anything, and it's so sad. It's so sad.
It is. So, us having that experience and going through it all, what advice would you give to other moms that are currently going through it? What would you tell them?
Well, I would probably echo back to some of the stuff that I would have told myself when I was younger, right? Is never tolerate it, And I'm not saying yell at your Lola, don't do that. There's always a kind and respectful manner to handle these things, So it's like you have to keep your head, and you have to stay kind, and you have to, whether or not it has to be that situation where you have to talk to them and like a child and explain to them why this is what you're choosing to do, then so be it. But the one thing that I will say not to do is don't let it go. Don't let it be okay for that to happen, because it just perpetuates it. The more of us, like I know, like you were saying, there's a bunch of us that are trying to break this generational like trauma cycle that like many people still believe are correct ways to raise kids, but the more of us that talk about it, and then we show them that there's a gentler way that produces great human beings, then at least it's dialogue. But if you just let it happen, and then nothing's going to change. So I would say don't tolerate it. Be proactive, right? Stay kind, and always communicate clear boundaries. If you have to say, I got it. Thank you for your comment. Thank you for your comment, Tita. I got it, you know? And
Mm-hmm.
so be it. What's the
Yeah.
worst that can happen? They be offended. They're going to be offended about everything anyway. They're offended that you wore this dress. You know what I mean? They're offended that you're fat or you're skinny or whatever. So what's new, right? At least you're standing up for yourself and your kids. So those are
Mm-hmm.
the things that I would say. Yeah.
I love that. And there's so many great advice there for sure. And I think one of the biggest fear for
Yeah.
me anyways, when I was a mom, and wanting to do things my way, and at the same time being afraid to tell people and set those boundaries, like you mentioned, of like saying, hey, I
Hmm.
got this. I'm doing it
Yeah.
my way type of thing. One of the
Hmm.
biggest fear, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this, is the isolation or alienation, right? Because now you're not listening to them
Okay.
anymore. They feel disrespected.
Sure.
So you know, the whole motherhood journey, it's amazing, it's wonderful, but it's also lonely, right?
It
And you
is.
need as much support as you can get. And
Hmm.
like you mentioned earlier, we get so scared to
Yeah.
not rock the boat because we want to be part of the community, we want that support, right? But is it
Yeah.
really support if it's not making you feel good, if you like, if it's really impacting your mental health and your self-esteem?
Exactly.
Like, you went out of your way to build your own community of other moms through the podcast, right?
Right.
And you have your support system there, and that
Hmm.
really helped you in your journey, right? And I
Right.
think that's something that a lot of other moms out there need to realize, is that, you know, yes, family is great for support, but if you're not getting that support, you can build and you can connect with other communities to have that platform, right?
100%. 100%. I wouldn't trade babysitting for my mental health.
Mm,
Never. You know what I mean? You really have to think about, at what cost am I letting this happen? Right? At what cost? And yeah, the trade is just not fair to you, to your child, or anything. So you're right. Like, they're out there. There are people, like-minded people out there. Maybe you'll find them online, and that's okay too, you know.
mm,
Maybe there are even like Facebook groups out there that, and all of a sudden you'll realize, oh, we're in the same thing, let's just meet up, you know, let's have a play date.
yeah.
There are many ways to find that community. Yeah, so don't ever feel like you're just stuck with either the community that you were born into, or
Mm-hmm.
the, you know, that you're just connected to because you're culturally the same or whatever. You're not stuck. There's literally like billions of people on this earth. Trust me,
Yeah. And there's
you'll
two right
find your
here. If
people
you're listening to
right
this
here.
episode and you want to
Exactly.
connect with someone that understands it and gets it, and you can relate to what we're discussing right now, feel free to connect
Yeah.
with myself and Mariel. We'll be sharing our information towards the end as well. But before we end this podcast, I want to share a few key takeaways from our conversation tonight. You know, it's been an enlightening and very, like, I really felt this conversation in my heart, Marielle. As a mom, as a
Oh,
Filipina, like when you connect with somebody that went through the same experience as you, and it resonates, right? So you really feel
no,
it in your heart all the
no.
stories, and it's just so powerful. You know, and this is the impact of storytelling. When you hear other people experiencing the same things, it validates your experience and
Exactly.
those feelings, because a lot of times you're either being gaslighted by other people or you're gaslighting yourself.
Yes,
Right?
yes,
So,
exactly.
you know, I just want to um, recap some of the key takeaways that we can carry forward as we navigate this tricky world of mom shaming. The
Yeah.
number one takeaway for me is empathy and support for moms, right? One of the most
Yes.
significant takeaway is the importance of empathy and support for mothers. Mom shaming is such a pervasive issue that affects countless mothers, leaving
Right.
invisible scars on their
Hmm.
emotional well-being. And as a society, let's remember that everyone's journey is unique, and what works for one may not work for another. Instead of judging, let's strive to be understanding, compassionate, and non-judgmental, offering helping hand and listening ear to support each other. Number two, the power of storytelling. This whole
Hmm.
Chica is so healing for me. You know, Marielle, you clearly have a passion for storytelling, and it's been a driving force in your work, from
Yeah.
hosting the Tired Moms podcast, and also to your involvement when it comes to like projects like The Jungle, and the Finding Manilatown. So it's
Yeah.
really important that we use storytelling as a powerful tool to break the silence surrounding mom shaming.
Yeah.
Building resilience and empowerment. I think, you know, we heard all the inspiring stories that we've shared. And it's also when you build that resilience and you empower yourself, you're empowering your children as well, right?
Hmm.
And supporting community initiatives. We mentioned that there's gazillion community outreach out there.
Yes.
And I think, Marielle, you use your platform as well to create these um, initiatives with your gift of like storytelling, writing, producing amazing content, right? The power of community-driven initiatives, and let's continue to support each other. But I want to pass the microphone to Mariel before we end this chat, this chikahan. I really hope that this conversation has inspired you so much, and it has inspired us. Remember, we all have the ability to make a positive impact, whether it's supporting moms, breaking the silence, or celebrating our diverse communities. So special thank you to my amazing kumare, Mariel, for sharing her experiences and insights with us. I want to take this moment now to pass the microphone to you. I do have one last question. What makes Mariel happy?
Oh, that's a lovely question. I don't feel that gets asked enough to anyone. What makes Mariel happy? It's really simple things. I want to have time with my family. That makes me happy. Am I allowed to have multiple happy things?
Yes.
Okay, French fries make me happy. But really, it's like if I could have time with my family and doing absolutely nothing, that makes me happy. I think time doing the things that I love make me happy. Like again, like you had mentioned, storytelling. That's really where my heart is. And if I could just have the mental space and the time to always do that and to interface with people like you who continue to drive this, into the community, like that's what I love, to do. Those are the things that make me happy. My family makes me happy. Potatoes make me happy.
So if anyone wants to share stories with you, how do people connect? How would they connect with you? Share your Instagram handles.
Yes. Connect with me on Instagram. It's Mariel Divina. So I'm sure that we'll have some kind of graphic, but it's Mariel Divina. That's my personal handle, like on Insta. Again, I'm inviting everyone, moms, not moms. Interestingly, a lot of the audience that listens to our podcast, some of them aren't even moms. They just connect, So please do connect, and if you want to keep up to date with some of the other stuff we're doing for the community with the jungle, it's literally the jungle, on Instagram as well. So yeah, keep up with us there, but don't hesitate to shoot me a message or comment or like. I won't judge you for stalking.
Amazing. Well, we will definitely be stalking for sure. I'm your number one stalker online. So
I love it. Where are all the likes though? Don't just.
Well, we need to make the stalking happen in real life, my friend.
There you go. Next time I'm in Toronto, or you're coming down here, definitely real life stalking. Yes.
Oh my gosh, I would love that.
Yes.
Well, thank you. I love you.
And I love you.
Talk to you again soon.
Yay.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Chica Casa. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay connected, be sure to subscribe to Chica Casa on your favorite podcast platform. If you have any questions, topics you'd like us to cover, or simply want to say hello, feel free to email us at chicasacasa@gmail.com. Remember, Chica Casa isn't just a podcast. It's a movement where hearts connect, stories inspire, and cultures unite. We are building a community where your voice matters. Thank you for being a part of the Chica Casa family. This is Argentina. Until next time.